Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to my week 2 review, Ohio State versus Youngstown State. Let's get into it. Kind of give my thoughts on the game and see what we're looking like. What I want to do first is I want to get into position grades. I'm gonna go down a list here. I have a grade. I've graded out each position, and I'm gonna kind of give my thoughts on what we saw from them this weekend against Youngstown State. So let's get into that. So I'm going to start from the top where everybody always wants to start, the quarterback position. My grade is probably going to be lower than a lot of people will give, but I'll be a little critical with my grades. So my quarterback grade is going to be a C plus, and that's stretched overall between both quarterbacks. Um, One of the big things that a lot of people have said on Twitter and even some other like beat reporters and things like that have put out is that the quarterback battle is over after this weekend. I think I have the opposite view of that, and I'm going to get into why. A lot of people are not going to like this take, but it's how I feel from watching the game, and I'm going to stand on what I have to say. Um, Obviously, Kyle McCord looked better throwing the ball yesterday than Devin Brown did. Now, yeah, yesterday was the first time that we've seen Devin Brown throw the ball since he's been at Ohio State, really. So, obviously that is something that plays into it. And last week, when Kyle McCord did not look great against Indiana, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, well, that's his first start," and blah blah blah. But again, I don't necessarily care which one of these quarterbacks starts. But I'm going to tell you some things that I like about both of them, some things that I don't like about both of them, and I really think the quarterback battle is not over. It may be if it is, and Ryan Day wants to name his starter and get that going with all the first team reps. I understand that because we have Notre Dame in 2 weeks, so we really kind of need to have that guy. But yesterday didn't tell me that the quarterback battle was over, and I'm going to tell you why. So obviously, Kyle McCord had the two uh, long touchdown passes to Marvin Harrison Jr. The first one was a busted coverage, but I mean, he put the ball right on the money. Marv caught it in stride, took it to the house, I think for like 70 yards. So obviously that was a great play. The other one was also a busted coverage. Marv got behind the double team that was on him. He had two defenders on him. Somehow got behind him. The ball was supposed to be put like more towards the sideline, but Kyle got it over the defenders. Marv made a good play on it. So, again, I'm not going to judge too much on that because ultimately it was a good ball. It was like over 50 yards in the air. So, I like that from Kyle. I like him recognizing that and actually throwing that up because last week I felt like he wouldn't have. He would have seen where Marv was at and he probably would have checked it down. And then he had another scoring drive where ultimately when they scored, he threw the ball out to Emeka in the flat, and Emeka made a guy miss, and there was nobody else there. So obviously that's what we want to see out of Emeka. And I thought Kyle did a really good job distributing the ball to his receivers, and kind of putting the ball where it needed to be for the most part. Now there was some issues with accuracy. There was a play where Marv was along the sideline. Kyle threw it a little bit too far out where Marv couldn't get his feet in. Another one where Marv was on the sideline and it was behind him. So obviously it's not perfect. There was even a completion on, I think it was like a third down. Ohio State was backed up towards the end zone. And it ended up being a completion for a first down for like 20 something yards. But the ball was thrown behind. If the defender had been in better coverage on Marvin Harrison Jr., it would have been easy for that defender to knock that ball away. So again, overall, I think it was a good performance from Kyle. He does need to continue working on being more accurate and on time with the ball, and I think that he will continue getting better at that. Now, getting on to Devin Brown, obviously there was some accuracy issues. Mainly, it was overthrows. I think like one of them or two, actually both to Emeka, were underthrows or thrown behind the receiver. They were both kind of over the middle. Those are passes you have to complete. So I need to see Devin Brown get better at that if he is going to still be a part of this battle. But the one thing that I like about having Devin Brown out there is that it really opens up the run game with misdirection. There was a play where Travion Henderson scored. I think it was the long run of the day, like 32 yards, something like that. And that play more than likely doesn't happen if if Kyle McCord is the quarterback. And again, this is nothing against him, but the threat of Devin Brown running the ball, he was able to read a defender, and then the line was pulling towards the left side of the formation where Devin Brown would have went if he kept the ball, and he ended up handing it off to Trey because he read the defender, and that was the right move. and Trey had tons of space on the outside and was able to get out there, and he was able to get out there and get around the corner and take it to the house. Now, that's not something that I think would happen with Kyle McCord as the quarterback, because if you watch that play on the defensive line, half of the defensive line went towards the side where the play didn't go because of that threat of Devin Brown running the ball that way. So again, that's just things that the having a quarterback that's willing or is a little more able to run the ball, that's going to open up the run game big time. Now, a lot of people say like, oh, well, Devin Brown is not really more athletic than Kyle McCord. And I mean, I don't necessarily think he's more he's more athletic, yes, but I don't think he's majorly more athletic. But the problem is that Devin Brown looks like he's a runner and he looks more comfortable running the ball. And Ryan Day looks more comfortable with him running the ball. Now, he had a couple issues where he fumbled. I think only one fumbled. The other one, he reached the ball out and got the first down, and it came out after he was down. He needs to get better at that. Obviously, you can't fumble the ball. I mean, if you're giving the ball up, that's going to be a problem at any time. But one thing I do want to see from Devin Brown when he is running the ball is I want to see him using his speed, because he's fast. He's not like super fast, but he's fast enough to outrun a defensive tackle. I don't want to see him trying to juke guys. That's not what he's doing. There was one play where he was running to the right, and I thought he could have got the edge probably if he just ran to the outside and he had a blocker out there. But then he tried to juke the guy that was chasing him, and the rest of the defense swarmed him. He ended up getting a loss of like 2, I think. So getting on to the actual throwing, because with Devin Brown, I've only really talked about him running the ball. Obviously, he had some issues with overthrowing passes. But I do think that the 2 most impressive throws that I've seen on the day, in my opinion, were from Devin Brown. One of those throws was the first drive he was out there. He threw a deep ball to Marv. Ball was about 50 yards in the air. On the money, it would have been an over-the-shoulder catch with the defender right there. But the defender grabbed a hold of Marv and drug him down, and they didn't call pass interference. Now, later in that drive, Devin Brown ran out of bounds and got hit out of bounds, and I think they kind of did a makeup call because he barely got touched. But they did a makeup call, gave Ohio State a first down, and they ultimately ended up putting the ball in the end zone. So it was that throw to Marv, and then the other throw that I thought was one of the most impressive throws of the day was it was I believe a third down, and Devin Brown dropped back. He's on the right side of the field on the right hash mark, and he threw the ball to Carnell Tate on the left side of the field, and it was a dart. I mean, the ball had velocity on it. It was on the money, hit him right in stride. When I saw that, the first thing that I thought was, that's a C.J. Stroud throw. That's a throw that you see C.J. Stroud make consistently, and if Devin Brown can do that, like I said, he showed his arm talent, but obviously there was the issues where he was a little inaccurate. I do think that that's more what you see from a quarterback who's playing their first time, though. Like, to me, he seemed like he was reading the defense perfectly. He was making all the right reads, but he was a little inaccurate, a little bit kind of like happy feet, things like that. That happens. I don't know if Ryan Day is going to end the quarterback battle this week, but if he does, that's fine. I'm okay with it. If it's Kyle, I'm okay with it. I need to see him get better, and I need to see him do something to where he can help the run game out, whether that be, a quarterback power every now and then on a 3rd and 1, or even like pull the ball when you're doing like a zone replay. Pull the ball sometimes. Obviously, that's depending on the defensive line, but I think that kind of like with C.J. Stroud, I think that if we have Kyle McCord as the quarterback, we're going to be running zone replays, and we're not really going to be reading anybody. It's going to be a straight handoff. So that play is kind of dead in the water. You're giving the defense an extra defender. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that Kyle McCord can't be a good quarterback or can't lead this team to a championship, but I need to see something different schematically with Kyle out there, which I think they did a little bit of that with like throwing throwing running back screens and things like that to help open up the run game. I like it. And, again, it's ultimately going to be up to what Ryan Day decides. But to me, I think the quarterback battle should not be over. Also, I don't know if this was ever even really a battle, because just simply based on the reps that were given, it seems like Ryan Day already made his choice that it was Kyle McCord, and he was just trying to throw Devin Brown a bone and be like, hey, you're still in this battle because we have games where we should win easily. But just a couple more things on the quarterbacks. Like these are the main reasons right here. So obviously, I talked about what I actually saw during the game, but some of the things that really, sorry, somebody just knocked on the door or something ran into the door. Anyway, once or some of the things that I seen, I already discussed. Now, looking back at the game afterwards, a couple of things that I noticed is that when Kyle McCord was on the field, Ohio State scored on 3 out of 6 drives. Again, this team that they're playing against is Youngstown State. They should be able to score almost every single drive. And then when Devin Brown was out there, they scored 2 out of 3. So obviously, Kyle McCord was 50%. Devin Brown was 66%. Um, again, Kyle McCord has the highlights. He has the good throws. But 50% against Youngstown State is not good enough because that translates to probably 30% against a good defense, and that's not going to cut it in a big game. So, we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, the run game was a big part of why Devin Brown was 2 of 3 in scoring, and he was really close to being 3 of 3. They just had a penalty that kind of brought them back, and then he had the 4th down play where he probably should have thrown it, but he said, "Look, nope, the receivers got tripped up. There was nobody there." So I don't know. We'll have to look at like the all 22 film and see if there was even a throw there to be had. But again, 3 of 6 for me is not impressive, and it's something that worries me, especially going into we got 2 weeks until we play against Notre Dame. And then the other thing that I noticed was the 3rd down conversions. Right now, Ohio State is terrible on 3rd down conversions for the year. I think they're like 114th in the country. That's just simply not going to cut it. And I mean, this offense is averaging less than 30 points a game, and they played 2 teams that they should have completely dominated. So obviously, there's new guys, and there's reasons for that, but it's also not acceptable, and I think that it needs to be addressed and needs to be taken care of. But looking at 3rd down conversions, when Kyle McCord was on the field, Ohio State was 2 of 7 on 3rd down conversions in the game yesterday. That's terrible. I mean, just calling it like I see it, it's terrible. That has to be better. I don't know. Again, I think that's where some of that misdirection comes in, because if you look at Devin Brown, he was him being on the field. They were 3 of 5 on converting 3rd downs, and I mean, you can't spin it any other way than that's just simply better. And those are where big games are won, is on situational football, like 3rd downs, red zone scoring, things like that. Those are the things that are going to win you the big games. That's what makes me say the quarterback battle is not over yet. You can have your opinion, leave it in the comments, and let me know what you think. But I'm going to move on from the quarterbacks now. I know that was a long segment, but I mean, I think it's a very nuanced thing. I don't think that it's just simple as, oh, Kyle McCord threw touchdowns, he's automatically the quarterback 1 now. But we'll see this week. Ryan Day, I'm sure, will come out and he'll announce what his plan is. Let's move on to the running backs now. So the grade I gave for the running backs is going to be a B. Travion Henderson, I felt like kind of showed the progress that he made. Obviously, it's Youngstown State, but he had 5 carries for 56 yards, over 11 yards per carry, 2 catches for 18 yards. That's 9 yards per catch. So obviously, he did really good. He even had another run where he showed tremendous vision and hit a hole, made a couple cuts and got a touchdown, but it got called back for, I think, a hands to the face on Josh Simmons. But overall, like, Trey looked good, and I felt like they did a good job of getting him in space. It's something that, I talked about last week, where they ran almost every single time they ran to the boundary. That's never going to be a benefit, for a guy like Trey, because he needs space. You got to get him out there and let him make a guy miss, and then, he's faster than everybody else on the field. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm having some. So anyway, he's faster than everybody else on the field. So why you want to put him to the boundary over and over again and make him just run into traffic? It doesn't make sense. Which they did a better job of that. So I'm glad that they got him out in space, and the results showed 11 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, he's a really good player, and you gotta put him in the position to win. The other thing that I want to mention about the running backs. Obviously, Chip and Mayan, not a great day. I mean, they had like 3 or 4 yards of carry. Mayan had another wheel route out of the backfield, which I love to see. I think that when Mayan goes in the game, teams expect Ohio State to pound the ball, And when he comes off the edge and is catching that wheel route out of the backfield, it really catches people off guard. And it seems like something that he's really practiced and really put work in, because he's been thrown to him twice and he's caught it both times. And, both resulted in, I think, over 10-yard plays. So I love to see that from him. So I'm going to move on to the tight ends now. The tight ends, I gave them a B grade. We didn't really see them too much in the passing game this week. A couple times, G. Scott had a nice catch on fourth down from Devin Brown, where he caught it and then cut it upfield and got the first down. But the biggest thing that I noticed with the tight ends is that I don't think I heard one single time where the announcers, or even seen it just from watching the game, where they missed a block. So I love that from them. G. Scott is super impressive, man. There was a story, I think Tim May did a podcast with G. Scott's dad, and he said straight up, like, I told G to transfer. He's not playing at Ohio State. I told him to transfer. And G, being the freaking man he is, said, look, Dad, the reason I'm not playing is because of me. It's not because of Ohio State. I need to do what I need to do if I want to play. And he did that. He seems like a great blocker. He's obviously a huge threat in the pass game because he was a wide receiver and transitioned over to being a tight end. So I love having G on the field. Overall, tight ends, B grade. I don't think Cade had a catch, but he was out there blocking, and I didn't hear anybody complaining like last week about him blocking. So I love to see that. Moving on to the offensive line. I gave the offensive line a C grade. Now, I felt like they played better than last week. Obviously, the competition was a little less. But I think that they didn't necessarily have as many miscommunication issues as they did last week, which is exactly what we wanted to see. Now, the reason why the grade is not higher, because I think there was 3 penalties that came from the offensive line. I think a holding, a hands to the face, maybe 2 holdings and a hands to the face. Again, that just has to be cleaned up. Get your pad level down. Don't get your hands up near somebody's face or their shoulders. Get them in the chest, and if you punch them in the chest and you block properly with proper technique, then you're not going to get a holding call. So again, I'm not going to go too much into the O-line. I think they look better. I see a lot of people talking negatively about Josh Simmons. I don't see that. I think he's super athletic. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's learning. This is his second game ever playing left tackle. So it seems like a lot of people all over, like Twitter and people that make content and things like that, they pick certain guys where they feel like they can judge these people and say, hey, this person sucks. But then if Kyle McCord last week doesn't play good, people don't want to admit that, and they want to say that it's because of his first time playing. But also, again, you have other guys that are playing for the first time, or even at this level for the first time. Josh Simmons, I think he's going to be fine by midseason. Even maybe by the Notre Dame game, he's going to be just fine. I'm not too worried about the offensive line because I trust in Justin Fry, and he's shown me progress basically every week that he's been here. I feel like the offensive line has gotten better. So I'm going to move on from that, get to the wide receivers, obviously the star group of the team. My grades on them is probably not going to be as high as most people think either. I'm going to put them at a C. I think they made some really good catches. Obviously, Emeka did really good after the ball was in his hands, making the first guy miss. But what I didn't like from them is I saw multiple drops. And then also, I felt like when the throw was not perfect, the effort was just not great. And I don't know if that's because you're playing Youngstown State, and it's like, okay, if you're not going to throw the ball where I need it, I'm just going to bat it down, or act like I try to get a hand on it, and that's it. But there was plays where the quarterback put the ball where it was at least catchable, and again, the effort just didn't look like it was there. So obviously, that's the best unit on this team. In theory, it's supposed to be. I expect them to be the best unit when we play against the best teams. But I didn't love what I saw Saturday from them. Again, they did make plays though. So you gotta take the good with the bad, and again, that unit is going to be good regardless. I think especially when we play against good teams. So I'm going to move on to the defense now. Starting on the defensive line, the defensive tackles, I felt like I'm giving them an A grade. I felt like that unit has looked dominant overall this year. Mike Hall got a sack. I think he got a sack. Yeah, Mike Hall got a sack. They were getting some pressure on the quarterback. This year I feel like they're doing a really good job of stopping the run. They're, taking on double teams. They're not getting moved off the ball. And I hope that continues as we start playing against better offensive lines. And I could see that because I just think that we have some beasts on the interior. Man, we have guys like Mike Hall, Tyleek Williams, um, Ty Hamilton. I mean, those guys all look really good. And I think even when you get into like the second and third string guys, I think you have really good players there. Guys like Hero Canoe, Tywone Malone. We haven't seen much of him, but I think he did get in this game for a little bit. So I think that's right now. I know I said the wide receivers are the best unit. I'll stick with that on offense, but on defense, I think the defensive tackles are probably the best unit on this team so far. Now, obviously, that pairs into the defensive ends because the defensive line is a unit overall. So the defensive ends, I've seen a lot of people. Again, it's one of those positions and players where people feel like it's okay to bash them, but not other guys. Personally, I think that anybody can be said that they didn't play well, but the defensive ends, I don't think they played terrible. Everybody wants to come at the defensive ends and say they're not getting pressure. I mean, from that position, you're not going to get pressure every single passing down. And I think that what the Ohio State's doing schematically is affecting their ability to get pressure. And, when it comes down to like a passing down, I'm seeing a lot of rushman package where you have Mike Hall, Caden Curry, Jack Sawyer, and JT Tuimoloau out there. And those guys, when they're rushing, a lot of times they're rushing to the outside. Even Mike Hall and Caden Curry from the inside are rushing outside, and it's allowing the quarterback to step up in the pocket. And I think that that's impacting the defensive end's ability to get pressure. Now, obviously, they need to be better. You're playing Youngstown State. You should be able to dominate. So I didn't put a grade down here for them. I'm going to go ahead and put them at a C. I need to see them get better, and I think that they will. All right. Sorry for the cut there. My son's school called me and said he wasn't there, so I had to make sure he was. And he was. We're all good. They made a mistake. All right, so moving on. The last thing I discussed was the defensive ends. Going to get into the linebackers. I gave the linebackers a B grade overall. I felt like they played really well this week, a lot better than last week, even though they didn't play bad last week. I felt like they were able to attack more, which is something that I think really benefits a guy like Tommy Eichenberg, which I'm going to get into more about him later in the show here. But with them being able to attack, they were able to get downhill, get into the backfield and make plays, and really disrupt the offensive line for Youngstown State. So, again, I think that's kind of the game plan with them anyway. I think last week I thought maybe we were looking at a shift in game plan where the linebackers would not attack as much and the defensive line would do more of trying to stop the run. But I don't necessarily think that now. I think that it was just that way because Indiana was running like a triple option offense. So the linebackers had to read and stick with their guy. Overall, they played really well. I'm not going to spend too much time on them. There was nothing like spectacular or crazy, but definitely good play out of the linebackers. And then moving on to the safeties, I felt like the safeties played pretty good. I think for me, when I look at safeties, I kind of look at the guys in the middle. I don't necessarily count the nickel as a safety. I would count that more as a corner in most positions. And then obviously there's Sonny Styles in that position who is kind of a corner, nickel, linebacker, safety, whatever. He does everything. But I gave the safeties a C grade. Early in the game, there was some mistakes by the safeties that ultimately allowed Youngstown State to score their first touchdown, which I think is why Malik Hartford was ultimately removed from the game. I don't even think he came back in. Obviously, Josh Proctor didn't play because of an injury. Ryan Day said that it's not a long-term thing, which I hope to see him back because, again, he looks freaky out there. But Jahad Carter played most of the time. I didn't really see him make any plays. Didn't really see him make too many mistakes either. So, again, I gave them a C grade just because there was some mistakes from Lathan and from Malik that allowed a touchdown. But I didn't see too many. And, again, there wasn't really like any big plays that I saw them make to kind of up that grade. So moving on to the corners, I'm giving the corners an A+. I think the corners played phenomenal, and I love what I've seen out of them. Obviously, since I'm lumping the nickel in with the corners, I have to lump the one deep throw on the first drive that was Cam Martinez. Listen, I don't know what's going on with Cam Martinez. I hate that I feel like the coaching staff has got him in a bad position. I don't think that he's naturally a nickel corner who's going to guard a receiver in straight man-to-man coverage. And I think that every time he gets on the field, we see that. I don't know. Maybe that guy needs to be doing more special teams. Maybe he needs to move back to the deep safety position. I'm not sure, but if they want him to play, I don't necessarily think that just manning him up with a receiver is the best way to do it. Because I mean he's getting beat, and it's just that simple. I hate to, I'm not dogging him. I don't know anything about that kid, but I do know that when he's out there playing man to man on a receiver, he gets beat. So, but overall, looking at the corners, I think Davis Nickmanosin played a really good game. It was another game where my friend, one of my buddies, he keeps texting me saying, "Hey man, this guy's getting picked on." But I think that that's just a schematic thing. I think that Ohio State has him playing off coverage, kind of over there on an island by himself, and his job is, obviously try to make a play on the ball, run the route if the receiver gets to you. But if they throw something short, just get there and get the guy down. And that's the biggest thing about Davis Nickmanosin is that he seems like one of the most surefire tacklers on the team. Like if you catch that ball, he's hitting you and you're going to the ground or you're going out of bounds. So I love the way he's playing so far. He brings a physicality and a toughness to the team that's honestly just something that we need. And then obviously the other corners we have Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock. So just starting with Denzel Burke, man, listen, I was touting Denzel Burke all offseason as a first round pick, and I think I even said he's going to be the best corner in the Big Ten. Right now, he's playing like the best corner in the Big Ten. Obviously, there's other guys that are playing well, but I haven't seen him give up hardly anything. And when the ball is in the air, he's getting his hand on that ball. So I think that he's really locking down one side of the field, and that's helping Ohio State's defense tremendously. And I think in some of these big games where people have to really drop back and pass the ball, having Denzel Burke be that lockdown corner on one side is going to really help the defensive line get pressure on the quarterback. And obviously, first interception from Ohio State cornerback since, what was last year, 22. So since 21, first interception from an Ohio State cornerback, and it was a beautiful one. I mean, it was a deep ball thrown to the end zone. He ran the route for the receiver, was physical to the point of the ball. He looked like a receiver going up for that ball, and he brought it down. So, I mean, I love to see that from him. That's one of those guys who he plays with a swagger to him, kind of like a very laid back, chill kind of swagger, not like a jump up and down. So, you see him make a play and then he just gets up and he walks away. He's like, look, I know that's what I do. So I love that from him. And Jordan Hancock, I think he's been solid in the nickel role, solid when he plays corner. I haven't seen him make too many mistakes really. So I love that from him. Again, this kind of wrapping up the corners and wrapping up the position grades. The next thing I wanted to do here is the players of the game. For me, I did 2 on offense and 2 on defense. I didn't really want to narrow it down to one because I felt like multiple guys played really well. So looking at the offensive side of the ball, the first player of the game for me is Travion Henderson. I already gave his stats before. I think he had a really good game. He showed really good vision, and I mean he looked elusive, fast. I really think that he's going to be a big time player for this team later in the year when they have to play some bigger games, with his explosiveness and his ability to take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. And then my second one on offense is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, Marv is arguably the best player in the country, top 5 pick, and he didn't show that the first week, but this week, he had two huge plays down the field for touchdowns. Obviously, some other big-time catches in big-time scenarios. So I'm going to give Marv my second offensive player of the game. And then I'm going to move on to defense. The guy I just got done talking about, Denzel Burke, he's my number 1 player of the game. Obviously, the interception, he had a nice pass breakup in the end zone, and then, some other good plays. He did do one thing I didn't like. He went in for a tackle and ducked his head. You got to be careful with that. That's a good way to get called for a targeting and a good way to really get yourself injured. So I hope to not see him do that anymore, but to remain physical at the point of attack when the ball is in the air. And I mean, I don't see him slowing down on that. I think Denzel Burke, it's his money year. I think that he's ready to get paid, and I think that he's ready to be like a first-round pick. The last player of the game is going to be Tommy Eichenberg. He looked like Tommy from last year. He looked like All-American Tommy. He was out there attacking the ball. He hit the quarterback and caused a fumble. There was a guy running on the sideline. Tommy Eichenberg hit him real hard. I mean, again, he's just a guy who seems like he's always making the right play. And when he hits someone, I feel like they feel it. He's a sure tackler. And in this game, he showed all of those traits, and I hope that he continues doing that. So that's going to be it for my players of the game. I'm going to wrap this up by giving a final grade for the team overall for this week. I say the team overall gets a B. And I think that the way I come up with that grade is I'm going to give the offense a C and I'm going to give the defense an A. Early in the game, I was really worried about the defense after the first drive, but I myself needed to just step back and be like, okay, look, there was that one big play. Ohio State made adjustments. They put Jordan Hancock out there in the nickel during passing downs. So the defense is an A, offense is a C because simply 35 points and scoring on 5 of 9 drives is just not good enough versus Youngstown State. So I need to see improvements from the offense, and I want to see the defense continue the level of intensity that they're at. And that's where I'm going to wrap this up. As always, leave a like, comment, hit the subscribe button, come back for more content. I'm trying to get videos out daily here, so let me know what you think. Peace out.